Pharmaceutical rep reveals horrors of Western medicine. A pharmaceutical sales rep has come clean after 15 years of being in the drug-pushing business. In her powerful book, Confessions of a Prescription Drug Pusher, Gwen Olson explains why she left her lucrative career selling drugs for some of the biggest names in the business, Johnson & Johnson, Bristol Myers Squibb, and Abbott Laboratories. Now she passionately advocates against the pharmaceutical industry, their unethical practices, and the hundreds of thousands of lies they lead to the grave. Gwen's eyes were opened through a gradual course of tragic events. Quote, "It was an awakening process, a spiritual and consciousness process where I started observing what was happening, what some of the drugs were doing, the misinformation, the disinformation. I was being encouraged to minimize side effects. When I talked to doctors, I started to realize that these patients were literally being tortured by the drugs," states Gwen Olson. "There is no such thing as a safe drug," she reiterates. Her book unveils her experience selling pharmaceuticals and the dirty secrets the industry doesn't want anyone to know. Olson explains that when drugs hit the market, no one knows even 50% of the side effects associated with the drug. Doctors are convinced of the drug's effectiveness, and their patients literally become test subjects or lab rats for the pharmaceutical companies. Olson even confesses, "We were being trained to misinform people." For years, Gwen Olson thought she was helping others by selling pharmaceuticals, but in 2004, a family tragedy opened her eyes to the truth. Quote, "My niece was 20 years old. She was attending Indiana University, and she was a pre-med student, an extremely intelligent, beautiful woman, and just a beautiful spirit inside and out. She was in a car accident and was prescribed Vicodin, hydrocodone for the pain, and became addicted. The Vicodin destroyed her niece's concentration, leading the young one to turn to a stimulant drug called ephedrine. The drug helped her stay awake long enough to study for school, but that's when she had a drug interaction." Quote, "She had a drug interaction and ended up in the hospital, and they tagged her with a bipolar disorder, not a drug toxicity or a reaction to the drug she was on. They started giving her more antipsychotics and mood stabilizers, and that set her on the road to becoming a mental patient," said Olson. Soon thereafter, the young woman quit going to school as the side effects of the medications took hold. The more she tried to wean herself off, the more violent the side effects became. A dependency had formed in the chemistry of her brain, and the 20-year-old battled a severe depression. Quote, "Gwen's niece was afraid that the doctors were going to convince the family to have her put back on drugs. That is when she walked into her young sister's room and took an angel lamp that was filled with oil and poured it over herself and ignited it, burning herself alive. The realization struck Gwen to the core, and she left her career selling pharmaceutical drugs. Now she speaks out against the deception, telling the gripping story of her niece's suicide. Quote, "It was a promise made to her that I would not let her memory be sullied and tell people what had happened to her. She would not be remembered as a mentally or genetically defective person. I would not allow that to happen. And I realize that there are thousands and thousands of people out there that need a voice, and I'm serving as that voice," she says. Quote, "A large number of psychiatrists, and dishonest because I see them giving people drugs that they know are brain-damaging therapeutics, that they know do not have positive long-term outcomes, that they know will not cure anything. They just take a list of symptoms and call it a mental illness or disorder. Children are given fake diagnoses left and right and put on mind-altering drugs with suicidal side effects. Psychiatrists can diagnose mental illness today without any scientific proof. No blood tests, urine tests, or PET scans are required. The result is millions of children are labeled and stuck on these drugs trapped in a culture of hopelessness. Quote, I was so disillusioned as well as angry when I found out how much deception, how much misinformation was taking place, and how I'd been used in that game. I literally was one of the front lines. I was harming people unintentionally, but I was responsible. I carry a burden for that now. I want you to pay attention to one thing that she said. They took the niece to the hospital, and the hospital did not diagnose her as having a drug interaction. Now, why do you think the hospital did that? Thank you for watching the Shakama Live Show.